Welcome back to another episode of the Hardcore Casual with your boy, Base the Kid. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. It's appreciated. There's a couple of very significant things to talk about. I'm going to keep this one brief. Without further ado, let's get into it. So very recently, it was within sort of the last 24 hours, it's been stated that Jai Opetaia has not been sanctioned to fight Ellis Zorro on the Saudi Arabia card on the 23rd of December. The IBF have rejected the petition for the voluntary, and they've said he must now face his mandatory challenger next for the belt, or he will be stripped of it. So he has a choice to make. It's either he gives up the belt and fights Ellis Zorro and just remains as the Ring Magazine champ of the cruiserweight division, or he pulls out of that event and then fights his mandatory, which will no doubt be a lot less money, but he still gets to be a champ, obviously a recognized sanctioning body champion, of course, or he and he still obviously has the opportunity for unifications. Now here's the thing. So on one part, I can understand the IBF rejecting purely because Ellis Zorro is not ranked with the IBF. He's ranked only in the WBO rankings, I believe. I checked, I think he's only number 12 in the WBO. He's not in the WBA rankings, and he's not in the WBC rankings either. I think I need to double check that, but from what I remember, he's only in those WBO. So you kind of know which route he was going, or his team was, pushing him in terms of world honors and world championships. Now, so that makes sense why they would have rejected it. Well, if he's not sanctioned, if he's not in their sanctioned top 15 as a champion, you can't fight him. So that would then tell me, well, who in Saudi didn't do their due diligence, or who at Queensbury, who was obviously putting the show together, didn't do the due diligence to realize that he's not actually in those rankings, and the IBF most likely won't sanction. Now, the only thing I can possibly think of is that either someone didn't know, or that some of these, the Saudis aren't necessarily boxing people like that, so they may not know all the intricacies left, right and center, but someone within the other team should have. So it might have been a case of they thought, oh well, we can petition for him to be put into the rankings based on his wins, his record, and everything he's done, and he can be put into the ranking updates from I think it would have been last month. Those are, but I think they didn't come out. I don't think the November ones came out, and they're only sort of going to be coming out this week. So at the moment, that's kind of how that one's looking. Now, in terms of what he should do, if it's me, to be honest, it's a no-brainer. As much as I know you don't necessarily want to give up that belt, you broke your jaw to win that belt, dislocated your shoulder to win that belt, and you want to be the undisputed champion. But if you're still the Ring Magazine number one, then you're still the number one guy in the division. No one is gonna say anything different, even if you don't have that IBF belt. And if you give it up, apparently you got there's a big free fight deal on the table with Saudi moving forward. You could quite easily get another shot at the IBF title. With you could just get a voluntary, get them to Saudi will put the money up and the champion will take it. Also, if you've not got that belt, then you can then look to the WBA. Arsene Gulamarian, he's not going to turn it down. He's not doing anything else. He Saudis can work it out where all of his ex and current promoters can get paid for him to get that shot. Then you got the WBC with Noel Gavor. Again, that's another fight that they could definitely get him a belt. Mauricio Solomon wants some of that Saudi money. If they say, look, we want Jai Opetaia to fight him, Mauricio says, yeah, sure, it's no problem. We are for the beliefs and the cause of the people. Yes, Mauricio will be all on it. So really and truly, it's only the IBF that's going to lose out on that one. But obviously I can understand if he wants to keep the belt for his own purposes, having spoken to him a couple of times, knowing what his mentality is and knowing what he's like, he's not going to want to give up the belt. Not for for him, the only way he loses the belt is in the ring. But that also being said, I've been kind of given some news that within the next 24 hours, things will be resolved, or a conclusion will be had in this whole situation, put it that way. So even though that's Sunday to us, let's say by Monday morning, or maybe early Monday afternoon in the UK, this situation will be settled one way or another, whether that's stripping, vacating, or Elisoro gets gets kept as the voluntary for the Saudi bout. There is also another potential thing that could happen. The IBF, because obviously Maris Breedis is still recovering from injury, he's not fully fit to fight at the moment, hence why he allowed the voluntaries against Thompson and this one to take place, with the understanding that he would get a fight in March. There is a potential possibility that a last minute replacement could be brought in to that bout, who is within the top 15 of the IBF rankings, and there's a few guys that have fought very recently, like within the last 2 to 3 weeks. They might be called in, and that in itself would be a very, very interesting scenario, because obviously they fought, so there might be a bit of wear on them, but they'll be near their fight weight, they'll be fresh, they'll be raring to go. Obviously Jai is also fresh, it'll be a different opponent, but there's a couple names, I'm not going to mention them, but if you guys go down the rankings, you'll be able to see for yourself who could potentially be in line if that becomes an option that the IBF are happy to sanction. But yeah, look, leave your comments down below, let me know what you think. I know what my opinion is on it. I think that if it comes down to it, Jai should get rid of the belt, but I also understand the IBF on this point, especially from the fact of you pick someone that's not even in their rankings to have the voluntary with. And we all know, even though it seems these days they kind of only do it when it suits them, but the IBF are pretty much sticklers for the rules, unless you're a PBC fighter. But hey, that's another story. And speaking of the PBC, so it's been announced over the last few days that Al Haymon and the PBC have come to an agreement. I think it's a shared broadcaster rights agreement with Amazon Prime Video, which I think which will take effect from March of next year, 2024, whereby they will have 12 to 14 shows broadcast on the platform. Now, as from what I've been told, it's nothing but it's a platform deal, but they get absolutely no money from Amazon. So I guess Amazon have looked at some of their previous dealings and said, no, like, you will fund the shows yourself, we just give you a distribution. We'll give you distribution and advertising of the shows, but everything within the shows you gotta fund yourself. So it will be a mix of pay-per-view, non-pay-per-view, and sort of like docu-series content. And from what I've been told, the non-pay-per-view and the non-pay-per-view portions of the pay-per-view cards, as well as the docu-series and stuff, will all be available in the UK and Ireland, and I guess anywhere else that Prime is, where you can have sort of Amazon Prime as an outlet, which is a great thing. But then you also will say to yourself, well, when you look at the quality of the non-pay-per-view cards of PBC, especially this year, last year, and all the subsequent years up to the maybe sort of 2019, 2020 sort of times, they haven't really been the greatest of cards. They're from their show box to just the Showtime regular cards, they haven't particularly been that strong. The pay-per-view cards for this year have been pretty stacked in terms of names and in terms of intriguing fights, although it's funny because every single pay-per-view has had a one-sided main event. It should have been, you would think that they should have been competitive, but they were all one-sided beatdowns for the most part, which is, except for one, which was Plant versus Benavidez. So it's interesting in that sense. But ultimately, I think what this will also mean is that every single fight card that the PBC have at this point is going to have to be stacked. So you're going to probably get between 6 to 8 bouts per card. And there can't be any more almost telling the public what they want like they were doing previously. oh well, no, you want, you know, Errol Spence versus Mikey Garcia. That's what you want. You don't realize you want that yet, but wait till you see the build up. Yeah, you know you're gonna, that's what you're gonna, you never knew you needed that one, but now you're gonna realize it's like, well, no, what they wanted was Crawford and Spence, and it happened, like, you know, ultimately 5 years too late, but it still happened. And I feel like that's where things go moving forward. Every single fight card they put on is gonna have to be of that level, especially because there's so much inactivity over there, and with only 12 to 14 cards, you would imagine that at max, what are you looking at realistically? Let's say there's 10 of them, 8, maybe 40 people, so at most you're maybe looking at 50 members of the roster getting out, and that's realistically only if you and if everyone is sort of fighting twice a year. There's going to be some fighters that might want to fight 2 and 3 times or 4 times even, because they want the activity. Some fighters might fight once, but ultimately what it also means now is there's going to be a bunch of PBC fighters that ain't on these cards. And as you've seen you know, Gerald Washington was on Anthony Joshua card on DAZN. You got Jared Hurders on a club show. I think he's on a club show this week or maybe next week. Mark Magsayo, he's on a, you know, a nondescript card this week as well. There's just a lot of these guys who now I guess are gonna have to find alternative homes, or, you know, be put onto different shows because they're just not going to be able to get out on this deal. So while on the top side of things, I think it will be great from that perspective, because you're going to have to you know, those guys are going to be active, they're going to be seen. But I'm sure that all the top guys, you know, your Tank Davis, your Errol Spence, Canelo most definitely, and now David Benavidez and Caleb Plant, none of these guys are going to be on the non-pay-per-view cards. So yeah, they'll be in big fights, those cards themselves will be stacked, but I just worry about what the rest of the cards are going to look like, and just how many are they going to try and cram onto those dates. So look, that's in itself going to be really interesting. I want to kind of see and hear a bit more about how it works, but the fact that I know Al Haymon himself has to put the money up for these, and he's not able to spend other people's money in this situation, will be interesting. Because remember, we heard that potential cards were going to start from January with Tank Davis and Isaac Cruz, and now we're all hearing that the first card of this deal is going to happen in March. I'm assuming part of that is because Al Haymon's got to fund it, he's got to try and find the funding for that for somewhere, because he's definitely not going to use his own money, and he knows what boxing's like, and he knows that it's not really a money spinner unless you got the big guys fighting. So the first fight you'll make a profit on realistically will probably be a Canelo fight or a Tank fight if the operational costs are kept extremely low. But after him earning 30 million in his last fight, maybe he might want to see a bigger guarantee than what he's used to getting. So it's going to be highly interesting to see how that one, you know, plays out moving forward. But I mean, look, at the end of the day, congrats that they got a new platform. You know, it's not a platform that's dedicated to sports, so there's no, you know, you can't guarantee ultimately that the people who are on there are going to be interested in the boxing, especially the pay-per-view offerings. Half, you know, I would reckon about 95% of them could care less about any potential boxing that's on there. But the other 5%, you know, if they're willing to put their hand in their pocket and the events are good enough, it might be a worthwhile deal. The interest and the intrigue is going to come when you get the free cards. If those cards are good enough, then that's when you can tap into a market, because, you know, Amazon, they've got like isn't it like 400 million subscribers worldwide, or 400 that are on Amazon Prime. So if you look at that in sort of that term, then between 200 and 400, but if you look at it in that term, you say to yourself, well, yeah, if you put on the free content and someone's just flicking, like over here we'll just flick through knowing that the Premier League football's on, maybe you just flick onto a fight, oh okay, well that counts in the metrics, and then if you enjoy it, you'll look for see when they'll give you an advertisement for the next one. And it can maybe start to build that way. But in order for them to do that, they've also means they've got to sacrifice one or two of the quote unquote the big fighters and put them on those cards and have them in really competitive, you know, matches that are gonna make these casual people, oh, that was enjoyable, I want a bit more of that, let's see what's happening next week or next month. And so when the next one comes up and you see PBC and you see this fight, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to tune in. Then the next one you see pay-per-view, oh, what you mean, so I got all of that goodness for free, now this is a pay-per-view? Oh, I wonder why this one's this has got to be better than what I've been watching, because that's how the casual mindset's going to be. When you have to pay for something that you've been getting for free, there's two ways you look at it. This is either a big deal because I'm being made to pay for it, or you say, oh, hold on, I didn't have to pay for the others, why am I paying for this? But the intrigue is there. So if they do it correctly, it could be a great move. Now, personally, I don't actually care, because I've got both DAZN and Amazon Prime, so I would have been able to watch them regardless, although the pay-per-views haven't been sorted out in the UK yet, so we don't know what's going to happen with that. But all the non-pay-per-view stuff is here, and I'm sure they'll have to just do a workaround whereby they just change the pricing for a UK version of the Prime platform. But that's all to be discussed in the next future months. But yeah, otherwise, look, at least they got a home. They've got some good fighters over there, and you know, they need to be out and need to be active. So hopefully this can be the start of it. But the 12 to 14 dates thing is a bit concerning. I need to see if they're either going to look for another promotional outfit to sort of house the rest of the guys, or if they're just going to start sort of farming out the ones that they're not as invested in. But yeah, I guess we'll wait and see to that. But yeah, leave your thoughts down below, let me know what you think. Again, please like, subscribe and share. Thank you very much for watching. That's Hardcore Casual out.